All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of A Heart Full of History. I'm so excited to be here with my new friend, author Sarah Aronson, who is quite accomplished, but her latest book is the amazing Abzuglutely, Bellowing, Bella Abzug. And I'm so excited to talk with you, Sarah, about this.
So happy to talk to you too, Selene. This is exciting.
It is. Tell me, well, I'll tell you something first. I remember Bella Abzug from when I was little, growing up. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and I remember her. I remember her bellowing. I think she's the first member of Congress I really remember. So it's really fun. And the hats, really, that was definitely, I see her in my head just like it was yesterday. So it's so funny.
It is so she was not the first person who ran for office that I learned about, but she was the first one who I saw myself in and
Mm,
who I cared about and who I became, I don't know, maybe very interested in. We won't say obsessed with, or
right.
she was like a role model to me.
Obsessed is so overused these days. It doesn't, no, the word ceases to matter.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, as a young kid, I remember helping my mom with the McGovern campaign.
Wow. I met him once.
And, it didn't matter that he was sort of right about everything.
Yeah.
He lost spectacularly.
Yeah, we see that trend, don't we?
Right, we do
Yeah.
see that. And we also what was amazing for me is that as a young kid, just into the double digits, that I was seeing the unfairness of the system and also the opportunities of the system.
Mm.
And after McGovern lost, somewhere around when it was obvious McGovern was losing, an older cousin said to me, "You got to see this woman. She's going to pump you up. She's going to get you
Oh, wow.
excited about the world." And it was Bella.
That's great.
And hearing her speak, hearing her words, hearing her accent, hearing and seeing her chutzpah was
Yeah.
like a mirror into my soul
I
and
love that.
future, that she showed me that you can be loud, you can be opinionated, you don't always get what you want,
Mm.
but you make your mark and you pave the way for others, because what we work for is the justice for all. We're not working just for ourselves, for our own egos.
Yeah.
And as a writer, that kind of hero, that hero who looks for the people who cannot fight for themselves yet, who need a spokesman, is the kind of person I love writing about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's a great title. Yeah, I'm so with you on that. So how old were you when you really discovered her?
I was about 11.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was really thanks to this cousin who, was worried that my mother, who was a stay at home mother, daughter of a rabbi, was not going to give me proper feminist bona fides. So,
Mm. Yeah,
so she
absolutely.
sent me Ms. Magazine in brown
Wow.
paper wrappers.
How cool is that?
Yeah, so that I would, hear the feminist point of
Wow.
view and see that women were not just standing by anymore, that they were making their way and they had something to say and they had issues that mattered to them. And frankly, those were the issues that had already begun to matter to me.
Wow, so young. I don't remember being that aware. I think when I was 11, I was in love with dead rock star. I was in love with Jim Morrison.
I had plenty of that, believe me. Me, and I mean, I had a really bad crush on Don Adams.
Wow. He was pretty cool. I saw his grave when it was in California.
That's
They
amazing.
they have the shoe phone on the grave. Like
Would you believe?
exactly. That was funny. I took it seriously though. I didn't know it was a comedy when I was a kid. You know what I
Oh my
mean?
God. Between Agent 99 and Harriet the Spy,
Mm,
I had role models.
that's true. Harriet was a good one, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Bella
I was
really,
heavy into Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. Very poor writing, but I just loved the stories.
I remember loving The Hidden Staircase, but after that, I was not a Nancy Drew fan. I think I bumped myself. So in 1973, I lived in England with my family. My
Nice.
dad was a professor of economics at Lehigh University, and he always had a lot of chutzpah, and he applied for his first fellowship and sabbatical. And we moved to York, England in 1973, And so imagine this. Imagine I have been introduced to this person, Bella Abzug, and I'm feeling all this fire about being a woman. And then we move to England and I'm able to see my culture from a distance.
That's interesting.
And I think that that is why I care so much about civic engagement
Hmm.
and I don't know, story in general as well, is because looking from a distance, even as a young kid, I was able to see things that were not fair,
Right.
and things that are not fair really get on my nerves.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. You're preaching to the choir on that one.
Yeah. And so like those are when my kids would tell you when she turns into the Hulk, it's because somebody has crossed her line of fairness. And when I see that happening, I'm like Bella. I'm bellowing.
I love that. No, I told you we met for the first time in where were we? Boston.
Yeah,
We were at the NCTE conference, National Council of Teachers of English,
go
and
NCTE.
yeah, I love
I,
that
I'm
conference.
a member.
Am I a member? I was a member.
Everyone should join. It's
I
not
think I'm a member.
expensive.
I had joined, but it's hard to keep track of these renewals. But anyway, we were at dinner, and we were celebrating the 20th anniversary of our publisher Calkins Creek and our amazing editor Carolyn Yoder. Yeah, she was my first conversation was with her, and we
And
met.
then I butt in.
No, I thought you were great, and I said to you, "You remind me of Bella Abzug." So it was amazing because you really do. You're just in the best way. You really emulate her.
Well, I mean, growing up in a mostly not Jewish environment, I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Wow,
So from a very early age, I was your matzah girl or your menorah girl.
I love that.
And, and as I got older and into theater and into different kinds of advocacy, the first person people said I was like was Barbara Streisand, who,
Oh, I could see that.
who coincidentally was my, sort of my goal, my first wish. When someone asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, Barbara Streisand.
I could
Duh.
see that now that you say that. Yeah.
So in some ways it was limiting and stereotyping, and in other ways it gave me a lot more credibility than I had even earned,
Mm,
so that I was put in positions where I was able to speak my mind throughout my middle school and high school years, and learn what the power and the downside of speaking spontaneously and passionately can be.
that's interesting. Give me an example of that.
Well, I mean, leading a protest
In high school, you did
in
that?
high school, when we're on, I mean, it's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about civic engagement and how, because I think that our kids today are not understanding their role in civic engagement
Very much so.
because we are so polarized that we don't communicate
Yeah.
on well with the people that we disagree with. And I think we really need to go back to the drawing board and start talking about how these books, how kids can learn how to engage with facts, with opinion, with disagreement, without, you know, without this nonsense and snark, and without
Yeah.
just
I mean,
looking for
it's worse than
clicks,
snark now.
right?
It's
With a
really
hate
bad.
mail and,
Yeah.
sort of, and even worse.
I
And
agree so much because that's what I think now. I think, what are these kids thinking when they see all this? Like,
this stuff.
it's
That's right. So when I was a protester leading the protest against whatever it was, sometimes I didn't even know what. I just liked protesting. That when you're on the outside looking in, there's only so much you can do. You can be a menace, you can be loud, but you have not entered the arena. And when we think about like Teddy Roosevelt's amazing speech, my favorite presidential speech of all time, the man in the arena. You got to get in the arena
that's a good
to
one.
make a difference. So, this is what
Mm,
I want to work with kids now. How do we get kids in the arena? What skills do you need to be listened to in the arena? How do we listen? We have forgotten how to listen.
yeah. Well said. That's amazing. And I could see your book really being an important part of that. Really, it can, because that's exactly what she was about. And It's a perfect timing for the book, you know?
It really is perfect timing, and it's also the most challenging time because people, libraries are being asked to not take chances. And this
Yeah.
is a book about a Jewish woman in a time where
Mm.
being Jewish and is more, where there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the world and a lot of
Yeah.
unhappiness about what Israel is doing. Well, I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
we shouldn't talk about
Let's
politics.
stay away.
But it's not really politics, but
Let's stay away from the things we cannot
I'll put it
control.
this way, I think it's just so much pain to see people suffering on all sides. Like I feel everybody's pain. So I really am an empath and I feel everybody's pain. It's quite a lot.
I agree with you. I do too. I feel like that there is a solution out there that would lead to peace for all
I hope
people
so. I
and
really do.
agency
I
and
really hope so.
dignity.
Every way you look in this world is just horror. But
Right, but the world's right. So when the world is disappointing you, what do you do? And I think when I look back to that time when
mm,
McGovern lost so badly, well, what did we do? Well, we got involved in local activities.
that's great.
We didn't stop believing in what we believed in. We didn't cave to something we didn't believe in. We looked at what we could honestly change in our world
Isn't
and
that the
said,
great thing?
okay,
Like when you're younger, you're full of all, like you don't give up just from defeat. And that's what we have to remember, you know, ourselves. But I love that about youth. And I think that's why our books are so important for young people because we're enriching them. We're giving them the fuel they need to go on because they are the future. Let's face the fact, we're not the future anymore. They're the future.
they're the future and they're the
And I
hope.
love it because they're open to it, you know, and they just need the right stuff that, you know, so it's really important.
I loved what Bella predicted for the world. This is my favorite moment in this book. Without an office, battling Bella could have slowed down, but her truth hadn't changed. There was still work to do, barriers to break down, people to fight for. She predicted women will run the 21st century, and young people are going to be its leaders.
Yes.
So
I love
I
that.
want that hope and that dream to come true. And that's why we write for kids, whether we're writing about politics or just heroes or
Yeah.
stories where people make terrible mistakes, is that we are showing the kids the way to take chances, to
Yes.
engage, to figure out what they care about. Those are things that make a person successful and and make justice possible. And
Yeah.
it is, looking for role models of people who don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. That's so
Really,
true.
who
That's so true.
don't take no for an answer. They say, okay, I hear you, I see the obstacle. Now what can we do? And who are able to compromise. A lot of people ask me if they think that we would be somewhere else if people like Bella Abzug had compromised.
Huh.
And the truth is, she did compromise. She worked with lots of women who agreed with things that she did not agree with, but they put aside their differences to make join together. We also had a different kind of government then, where we had a functioning middle. So her role was different.
We did and we didn't. I mean, yes, things are really extreme now, but things were never that great in the government. I mean, the ERA, I mean, it's so infuriating that what's that woman's name that got it finally through Congress? I can never think of her name. You know that woman? See, I wrote a bunch of books for Scholastic for on years of civil rights, and one of them was the year when that woman got it through. I can't remember her name.
But it
She's
didn't
amazing.
go through. It never got ratified. I
No, it
just
never got
wrote
ratified.
it.
I know, but the woman got it through Congress. Then the states wouldn't vote it, which it's so maddening. You know,
Yeah, it is maddening. I mean, it was, the women who were fighting for the ERA, the waves of women who have fought for the ERA over the years. There are some people say to me, well, it's just symbolic.
no.
And it's like, no, it is more
Is
than
it are
symbolic.
any of the other amendments just symbolic? Why
Right.
would that be just
Right. And
symbolic?
are there any laws about men's bodies?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No.
I no. It's
No.
and
So I mean,
I don't
but we need to say now that we have more women in Congress. I remember in the seas when Bella was elected, they kept saying this is going to be the year of the woman, but there weren't enough women. Well, now there are more women and more women entering politics and entering and
Wow.
becoming advocates and activists. And now we should declare we need a year of the woman and we
Yeah,
need to put
but the
ourselves
problem is
forward.
that the states won't ratify it.
Right, right.
See, it
So,
did get through Congress that time. It did.
right.
And then it ran, I think it's like 2 years that it gets to be ratified or something.
All right, let's look it
They
up.
did not ratify it.
Let's look it up because you're driving me crazy.
I know this because I wrote that book.
We just have menopause brain.
I just have so many facts rolling around in my head. Those books I had to write really fast, a whole year, boom, 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 boom. You have a deadline. There was a woman,
So,
right?
wait, hold on. ERA
Okay,
ratification.
let's
We're
see.
going to just look at this. Let's ask Google.
Woman.
So it was 72 when Bella was there.
That might have been the year that it got through. It was either 70 or 72 because I wrote those 2 years for Scholastic. ERA passed.
All right.
in
So it
Congress.
was written by Alice Paul
That I don't think
and
that's
Crystal Eastman
yeah.
and first introduced in 1923.
Here we go.
It's
It's
wave
Martha
one.
Wright Griffin's got it through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we need a book about her.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the thing I thought about that, okay. It's maybe you should do this book. It's hard for me to get past the fact that then the states didn't ratify it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think I mean, I actually think this is something I want to talk about on panels. So people face failure. Okay.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
what is
like
the ultimate lesson
how
of this?
many manuscripts do you write that don't get through compared to
Yeah.
what you get through?
I know, but I can't. Okay, I
I
have a
bet about
problem.
200.
I just have a problem with the fact that it never, it didn't get. I mean, yeah, it's an amazing story about her. You should check her out. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna check.
you're probably
Yeah.
the person to write that book.
All right, you hear that, Carolyn?
Yeah, because I can't get past the sadness of the thing. She's really cool. Like she did it 2 times, right? And then the second time she got it through, and because she was saying to these men, oh, da da da, and one guy was like, when you get 100 signatures, come back to me, and he was just blowing her off. And then she's like, okay, it's your turn, and
There's so many great stories of women who have done things that that and that not really gotten the credit or were thwarted, unfairly in their efforts. I was reading the other day about Helga Espy. Have you ever heard of her?
no,
She wanted to walk. She and her daughter walked across the country because they wanted to do it in a certain amount of time to win $10,000 to save their family farm.
wow,
You know, and they became sort of before the internet. Were like sort of viral because people would take pictures of them when they would enter their town, and they literally walked across the United States, but they didn't make it in time, and so they never got the 10,000. But it's like to me that kind of story, that kind of journey to change, even if change doesn't happen, it's a step forward. So anytime when I face failure, when a book doesn't sell, when my agent doesn't like it or no editors like it, I think, what steps did I take? What did I learn? What did I say that I want to say more of? And I get back to work.
I understand. I never give up on any of my manuscripts, though. I'm like, I'm going to get this published. I don't care how long it takes.
I don't know. I think maybe I'm a fair. I don't know. I put them in the drawer, and sometimes I pull them out, but a
I
lot
don't
of
put them in well, what drawer? You have the literal drawer?
I have. Well, I have a folder on my computer that says "Works in Progress, looking for support."
That's funny. No, I put on my website available for acquisition and I described them all and I'm going to get them one day. I'm going to get them published because they're very
Uh,
good and I'm going to do it. Sometimes it's just not the right time for a manuscript. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I
I
know.
have this
Well, that's
amazing one I wrote about John Lewis and there are a lot of books about John Lewis, right? But this is about his first it's called, what is it called? Oh my God, it's been so long since I looked at it. But he good trouble, because he always talked about getting into good trouble. And the first time he got into good trouble was when he started a petition for Black people to get library cards. Okay, and nobody would sign it because they were all afraid of the Ku Klux Klan. But he did it anyway. He submitted it, and there's a lesson in failure. Like see that I love because it shows the beginning of this man, and I love this manuscript so much. And no, people don't want it because there's too many books about John Lewis. Well, there's a lot of books about George Washington. I seem to be able to do them okay.
That's
But
right.
I'm going to get that published because it's really good. And there's no book about that part of his life. And I am extremely proud of it. And I'm not going to rest until that book gets published.
Yeah.
Even if
Have
I
you
could do it
seen?
myself. The problem with self-publishing is then you have to promote it. And that's like, who has the strength for that?
I think that for different industries and for different genres, self-publishing can be a really viable
I
alternative.
admire the people that,
I admire the
yeah,
people who
but
do it
I
as well.
can't. It's so much work to market, it's so much. It's hard enough to promote our books when we have a publisher.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think that, having been in book marketing for a short amount of time, that getting books on the shelf is not a one-step process.
No.
And
Yeah, no.
and from your sales point of view, from your publisher's point of view, they have hired people who make those phone calls day in and day out,
Right.
trying to get our books on shelves. And
Absolutely.
it is, you know, like I'm so grateful to those people because I know how hard it is.
Absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's
I
so
know.
true. It's a such an endeavor, you
Right.
know.
And at the same time, we want to be working on the next thing, or we want to be
Right.
talking to
Marketing
kids.
takes you away from what you love, the
Right.
writing. Yeah, that's
So,
it.
when I'm looking at this is the time of year I set goals for myself as a writer.
Okay.
The first thing I do is I look back and I say, okay, what did I do in the last year, 2 years that made me really happy, or that I'm really proud of, or that was really hard, but I did it anyway. And I journal a lot about what that felt like. And then I look from within and say, okay, what is it that you want, Sarah Aronson? And what do you want to do? What do you want to say? What do you want to write? How do you want to spend your time? And then I think, well, are there things I have to do?
Right.
You know, are there obligations I have that will take me away from my writing?
Mhm.
And then once I know all, and I have a contingency plan for when things go badly, then I set my goals for the following year.
Wow. That's
And I
really
think,
interesting.
and I think about no expectations. I don't ever want to tie my sense of self or validation of my work to things I cannot control. So I'm happy when I've written, whether it sells or not. I can wish and pray, but that's all I can do. It's up to somebody else.
Yeah. That's true, but that's
But
really
boy, do I
interesting that
want
you do
it.
all these goals. See, I don't do that at all. I don't know. I feel like I just don't do goals. I just sort of. I mean, I know I'm always on a project, and I'm always, but I kind of
I
have a
think,
list. I have a list of what I want to do. It's different than goals.
yeah, I think for me that the goals have been helping me because of, attention is challenging.
That's true.
Distractions are mighty.
They are.
And I spend as much time teaching and working with other writers as I do working on my own
I was going to
stuff.
ask you about that. So I know you've done workshops at Highlights, right? That's interesting. So do you have like a set group of people you work with? Like, do you have regular students, or how does that work?
I don't work with anybody
Okay.
because I think that there's room for everyone. So
Mhm.
if a person has a desire to go deeper into their story and to get vulnerable, really to feel like you're naked on a blind date, like then come to me, darlings.
That's funny.
I'm ready to work with you. And I get great joy out of finding the heart, the glimmers of someone's process and what they want to say, and helping them to find ways to say it better.
Mm.
I don't like the word mentor. I feel like mentor is power.
Oh, that's interesting.
When you have a mentor, you do what they say. I
That's a
don't
good
want
point.
my writer friends to do only what I say. I want them to think about what I've said,
Right.
but I want to be in conversation, engaging back and forth the way we do with Carolyn,
That's what I was just gonna say. That's how it works with Carolyn. I
right?
love
Like,
that. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to model
Mm.
is to say you're bringing me something. I respect that. Now, let's work together to say what is it that you actually want to say and how can we say it better. So a lot of my teaching is revolved around a project, but
Mm.
I'm also loving this class I teach online with Chris Tebbets called Just Do It. And really, it's a page producer's class. So if you need accountability, if you need community, if you are just tired of being at your desk by yourself and you can't stand it anymore and you need to hear your voice speak, this is a really good class. We have lectures, we have discussions, we have studio hours with Daria Peoples, who is amazing and broke open my process in a way through drawing that I never thought I could still do. I thought I was sort of stuck in my ways.
Wow.
And that was really exciting. We have Zooms where we write together. One is happening right now. And we have things like, I call it Promptapalooza, where
That's
we just
fun.
do like 10 different prompts and
Wow.
just see what we can generate.
Wow.
And all kinds of things like that to help you get your pages done. Because
So
you don't always
how do people find out about that?
highlights. So go to highlights or email me. Emailing me on my website is always the fastest because
Yeah.
I get less email than highlights. So
Right.
your message will be higher up on the board
Yes,
if
yes.
you email me first.
Is your website
My
yourname.com?
website is my name.
Yeah, me too.
And, there's a Sarah Aronson Society that every once in a while will email me and say, it's a bunch of people named Sarah Aronson. And they'll say, are you sick of your URL? And I say, no, I am not.
Really?
They're waiting for me to forget, so they're going to nab it.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's been like working at highlights and working with people at all levels, from very beginners to accomplished published writers who just need another pair of eyes,
Yeah, that's true.
has revealed to me the strengths of my process. It's given me ideas about how I engage with the text. I think that my first letters to writers were probably 40 pages long. I think I've gotten them down to about 15.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
My friend Allison says, sure, sure, she says, 15.
I like working with writers too. I do teach, but I keep it to a minimum because it's hard. It's a lot of work to do that, and I don't have a hell of a lot of time. Now that I'm doing these podcasts too, it's like, what? I do love it. It's a whole other side.
I think we all, I mean, when I look, there are days I go online and I think, oh my gosh, look at all these posts that people have made, all these memes people have made,
Yeah.
all these great Canva slides.
I love
I think I
Canva's
love
great too, right?
Canva.
Canva's the bomb, like without
Right.
Canva, I couldn't not do anything.
There's nothing, right. It's squat. That but like everybody puts their time into different things that they feel are
That's
important or
right.
they're
There's
good
only,
at.
what I want to make a goal for? I want to make a goal that I make a calendar for every day, like a time calendar, because I always think, what if I worked in an office? I would really have to be accountable. Like if I work, which I could never hold a job. I tried, it didn't work. And, when I was younger, I worked in advertising, forget it, make a calendar, an hour to do the Canva, put the posts and that, but first always write for a block of 2, 3 hours and then do that and then go back. That's what I want to do. I have a real problem with time. Because when you sit and write, all of a sudden, like hours have gone by and you've written one paragraph, which is great, but there's really no way to, I need to set my time limits on things. I'm not good with that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's where my goal setting began, was that, undiagnosed ADHD and or maybe just too many things that interest me or that I find sparkly.
That's very true. Well, I think as writers, we do find interest in so many things. And people say, where do you get your ideas? Well, where don't I get my ideas? It's just which idea gets next.
Right. Which idea keeps hitting me in the head? Or when do my kids say, could you shut up, mom, and just write that book already?
Yeah,
Because we're sick
exactly.
of hearing about him or her.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's talk about when you decided to write this book. Like how long, how many years, what's your process with the book?
All right. So I want to take you back to 2014.
Okay.
I just published my third novel and it did not do well. And it got some brutal reviews
I hear
and it
that.
didn't sell well. But I was a professional and I knew I took some big chances with that book. And I started writing another book, even riskier, YA contemporary novel. And partly because of my sales history, partly because of the topic, maybe because of the writing, who knows, that book went to many acquisition meetings but did not sell.
Mm.
And I felt like I was at a crossroads of in my career. I didn't think that going and writing another edgy YA was going to find a new home. I was feeling low. I was wondering, did I give up being a physical therapist for nothing? And then I thought about who I was. And I do this exercise often. I ask myself and my characters, who are you? And I wrote down all this stuff. And then I decided that the word play kept coming up in my life, play and confidence. And I thought, I've lost this. This
Mm.
is what I don't have anymore. So I told my agent not to call me for a while. And I spent 6 months, 8 months focusing on the power of play and writing everything that I didn't think I could write.
Hmm.
And one of those books was just like Rube Goldberg. I didn't think I was smart enough to write a biography or organized enough to write a biography or knew the difference between good research and bad research. Like, how do you tell?
Yeah, it's true.
And like, you have to learn how to spot it.
Absolutely.
So I worked on Rube, sold Rube, and then I was like, wow, I did that. And I
Yeah.
love that story allowed me to say. Who else would I like to write about? And then it's like the heavens opened up and said, your hero, girlfriend, write
Right.
about Bella.
Yeah.
And so that began that process of reading, listening to primary sources, reading Bella's writing first. I always start with primary sources because I want to get the rhythm of the person's voice being like the thing, like I want to hear it from their point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then secondary sources.
Yeah.
And then finally I
If the
began to
person
write.
has left, has if you can get it in their voice, absolutely.
Right. And, sometimes you do all that research and you think, well, I don't know. So what? This is not like that's what
Exactly.
Barb Rosenstock says. So what? Sometimes there's no punch there. Sometimes a person can live an interesting life, but I have nothing to say about that life.
I can
I have no
understand that. Yeah.
stakes in the game. But with Bella, I did because of women's voices, because of my connection to her as a young girl, because she failed, but she didn't stop. And
Right.
I admire that. So I started writing that book and it got a big stack of rejections, mostly because no one knew who she was.
Wow.
And that was sobering. And that actually made me go deeper and write it a slightly different way until it found its way to Carolyn's desk. And then she was like, yeah. And then, you know, knock on the wood,
Yeah. That's
it
we
began.
have to find the right home for sure. And
And
Carolyn is such a champion of
of
teaching kids
history.
about people that they should know.
And I think what I'm most grateful for is for Carolyn really helping me to develop my own research pedagogy and my own methods for understanding what the story has to say and looking at that page turnability the same way we would care about any other book.
Yeah,
We have to care about that with biography. It can't
absolutely.
just be we need to know about this person. It's we want to know about this person. Oh my God, what is this person going to do next? So
So
that
when you wrote when you wrote it and it started getting all the rejections, was that the same manuscript as you sent to Carolyn, or you
no.
revised it?
Oh, I revised. I think I have about 40 versions of this book.
See, I think that's important for people to know. That you have to keep carving through the marble.
Yeah, my friend Brenda Ferber grades her rejections. So like if her name is on it, it's a C. If it's just a form letter, it's a D.
Yeah,
If it's a just wait 6 weeks and you'll hear, that's an F.
right.
B is anything personal, and A is feedback. So the feedback I got from those rejections, because, and this is the reason, people, to be a nice person online, is because all these agents and editors knew me
Right.
from things I had done already that were nice. So they were willing to give me a drop of feedback. And those drops grew into a puddle, that grew into a lake, that
Right.
grew into an ocean, that I finally figured out how to write that book and got it to Carolyn.
Amazing. So, how long do you think the whole process was?
Probably about 7 years
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That I
from
understand.
start to finish. And the
Yeah.
next book that we have coming out together, I found that story in 2012. and it won't be coming out until 2027.
Yeah.
So, anytime somebody says to me, oh, publishing is really, really competitive, it's so hard to jump, break in. I'm like, yeah, it is really hard to break in. But you know who doesn't get there? People who quit.
Exactly. It's not for the weak of heart, and it's definitely not for people that are iffy. Like if you don't love it, don't do it, you know?
Don't do it. And if you don't know why you're writing it, like all of my work, there is a very strong thematic presence, a big why.
Yes.
If my DNA is not in this game, I'm out.
Absolutely.
I
You have to
just
find you
lose
have
my
to find that why for yourself. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it at all. You're right. That's
right.
so
I
crucial.
remember, I remember when I was picking, like when I was picking advisors at Vermont College,
I have an
and people
MFA
were
too
like,
from New School.
and everybody was asking, well, how do you pick your advisors? And I think, who makes me feel more confident? Those are the names I put down, not the people who scare the crap out of me. That would be a terrible way to work, to
So,
feel
well, what do you
scared
mean?
all the
Did you
time.
you you knew them all personally? You'd gotten a chance to meet them?
You get to interview them.
Oh,
But
well,
like,
that's cool.
yeah, so like one person was falling asleep while I was talking.
Well, you don't
Not
know. That's a big no.
okay. Right. So that's an easy no. But some people really like sort of made me feel, for lack of a better word, stupid.
No, you don't want that either. I had
And
I know. I
you
had
don't
one teacher
want
that
that.
totally put me down all the time. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why would you
Right.
what's going on here?
And then that gets back to the mentor thing. If you feel stupid in a partnership, you're just going to do what they tell you to do.
Yeah.
Then you have eliminated your why.
Yeah.
So I want my why to be the biggest beating heart in my story. I wanted to celebrate Bella because she had chutzpah, because she believed in justice, and I believe in justice. And we have more work to do, but she got us started. That's what I wanted to say.
That's wonderful. What do you think Bella would say now? What's
I
going
think
on?
she would say, my God, what are you people doing?
Maybe oy vey.
Oi, no, it would be saucier than that. It would be saucier. But I mean, she would be, I mean, when I think about the laws about books, about body autonomy, about healthcare, about civil rights, about LGBTQ rights, these are all things she fought for.
Love that she talked about gay rights and everything. It's like amazing.
She was, my first title was Bella Abzug was right about everything, so all of you should shut up.
I love that.
I mean, but it is but she didn't figure out how to get that across to a majority of the people who worked in the government. And
Yeah.
that, I think that is, and we're still there. When I watched how Harris was treated in interviews, we're still there. We
Yeah.
don't know how to treat women the same way we treat men.
I hope I don't know. I'm trying to I just write and I'm trying to, I don't listen to the news at all and that's it. And you always hear things anyway, like on Facebooks it'll pop up, but
Yeah, no, it's impossible to run away from the news. But
yeah,
I
well,
also think that for us, as the people who are forward facing to young people and talking about stories, is that we have to realize and hope that these stories add up to something, so that this next gen, you look at these young, David Hogg and Maxwell Frost
right.
and young people who are doing amazing work,
Absolutely so. Yeah,
and they're standing up and they're
absolutely.
representing the next generation. And we need to put them on our shoulders so that they can get what they need to get done, because we know how it doesn't get done.
Yeah, I just think the main thing is the problem is people's greed. People's care only about their own interests and they put that ahead of other people. And I don't understand that.
So so why this is a theme of a lot of my books. Why do we reward that? We have heroes, often sports heroes, who are to disappoint us by doing
Absolutely.
terrible things.
So much so,
And
yeah.
we have but why are we not yet evolved enough to look around us and say, these regular people are the heroes? Who is this? What is a hero? Is a hero, and in my books, a hero is an ordinary person who does extraordinary things against extraordinary obstacles.
Yes.
And that, I think, is what all my books are
I
about
like that.
people People, ordinary people who got the call and saw the obstacles and said, ugh, forget it, I'm going for it. And whether they were good at it or bad at it, whether they succeeded beautifully or abject failure, they did it. And a lot of times they didn't even hold a grudge. That's magic.
That
I don't
is.
know how you don't know how that happens. I'll hold a grudge.
I don't. I try not to. I try not to.
I
It's
try
not
not
good for
to,
us.
but it's hard.
I find lately I find it easier.
Yeah.
I have one grudge. It's a big one about my son. That's a very sad subject. My son passed away,
I
and
know.
so that
I'm
I hold the
very
grudge the
sorry for the
person
loss.
that killed him. But other than that, I can pretty much let things go. But
Yeah.
so tell me, why did Bella? What was the thing that made her take the leap to run for the house?
Well, she realized, as I have, that you can only get so much done from the outside. And it was a pretty radical decision of hers to go from the streets activist and lawyer who stood up to the government and the McCarthyism to being a 50-year-old first time candidate.
Wow. So she had two obstacles. She had the ageism and the fact that she was a woman.
That's right. That's right. And New Yorkers loved that outside status. Now, if she had been from Kansas, what might her story have been? Who knows? But
Right. Exactly.
you know what? A state that wasn't urban. I mean,
You're right. Exactly.
no shade on Kansas.
No. No.
Um,
No. No. But I knew what
but
you meant. Yeah.
so I think that that when she made the decision, she went full force, and she only served 3 terms, and she almost didn't serve more than 1 term because her district was gerrymandered.
Yeah. I saw it. Yeah.
Push her
Yeah.
out, try and push her out. So but by the 3rd year, she was declared the most influential person in Congress.
That's amazing.
And of course, we know, like, the symbolism of the hats is that without the hat, people thought that she was an assistant. They didn't realize that she was a lawyer. She
Hmm.
put the hat on because the hat stood for authority. And there was only one place she couldn't wear the hat:
Yeah. On the floor.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maxine Waters' chain. At the Democratic National Convention, I got to shake Maxine
Well,
Waters'
that's
hand,
awesome.
which was really awesome.
Wow.
It was really, really, and Barbara Lee had amazing memories of Bella.
Wow.
Barbara Lee was encouraged. This is what I hope books like this do. Barbara Lee was encouraged to run for office because Shirley Chisholm visited her school and made her excited about politics and made it seem possible. So who are we? Who are you and I inspiring to make something big possible? We may never know.
That's the thing about us, right? With the books, we never, we'll get, once we'll hear from them, out of the blue. It's like, but you really don't know who you're touching at all, which is,
That's
this is a
right.
very lovely thing. We just
That's
put it out
right.
there, but we put our hearts out there. We put our hearts into our books, and then they're going to touch other people's hearts.
And that's, writers, are you writing that down? When you put your heart in the book, it's going to be better. It's going to
Yeah.
reach somebody else. And if you hold your heart back, either because you're writing for the market or because you're afraid,
Yeah. It's not genuine. Then it's not,
it's not
if you don't give your heart to it, how can anybody else
right.
relate to it at all?
And because you give your heart to it, it's going to hurt more.
So
Like,
true.
it's like when you're not on the list, when you didn't make, when it feels like nobody has seen your book, when you get rejections, it's going to hurt more, but it's going to be so much more worth it because your book
Yeah.
says something. And that is, like, at the Highlights Whole Novel retreat, there's always one moment where at least I cry
Oh,
because it's so overwhelming to put yourself down on the page, to take everything that matters to you and put it down. But that is exactly what we have to do,
yeah.
especially now where they're hoping that people, there's so much fear right now. We need to reach even further. We need to fall even harder. We need to get up, brush ourselves off, and do it again
I like
because
that.
the world needs us
I
right
like that a
now
lot.
more than ever.
Fall even harder. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Do you do yoga?
I hate yoga. I hate it. I hate it. I
All right, so
cannot
if
tell you.
you
I cannot
liked
tell
it,
you how much I hate yoga. My son loves it. My son
all
Michael
right,
loves
so
it.
for
Yeah.
your son, so standing bow pose, that's my writing process.
Hmm.
So I'm reaching forward as hard as I can and I'm kicking back as hard as I can.
Hmm.
And at some point, I'm going to fall down. Usually, when the yoga teacher says, if you kick hard enough, you could stand there all day. Boom. But then I get up and I do it again, and I actually do reach further. So that is my writing process, to
Right.
always be reaching for something that feels slightly out of reach.
That's so true. Also, yeah.
And that
Do you know
is,
Patty
that's
Gouge?
what each of my books represents.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Well, reach hard. Absolutely. Well, Patty Gouge. I saw her. My first Chautauqua. I've seen her. I saw her at several. I went to three Chautauquas, which is what Highlights used to have this big conference. That's how I met Carolyn. So Patty Gouge, an amazing editor from Philomel. Wow, she gave this talk and she said, when you write, you have to ask yourself, did you go far enough? That I love because yeah, you're doing this and that, it's done, but did you go far enough? There's such a
Right.
difference from just settling for, okay, it's done. Like, you have to know in your heart that you went far enough.
Well, the late, great Deborah Brody, who was my first editor,
Sure, I knew her. She was my teacher at New School. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I loved her. I miss
yeah,
her really bad. I miss her. But every day she said, sort of, I like remember things she said to me. She plucked me out of the universe and just said, "You need to start writing."
amazing.
That she used to tell me, "Eat dessert first." And I would be like, "What?" And she would be like, "Come on, write what makes you happy. Write what makes you feel satisfied. Write what brings you what is going to make you go back to your computer, Sarah, and keep on going because you can't get enough." And that's dessert for me.
That's very
So
true.
like
Yeah,
so that was her way of telling me to keep going further,
yeah, I like that.
was to just focus on, stick with what brings you joy. And she would make me write things out of order. She made me shuffle things for greater relevance,
Hmm.
and she would keep pushing me, and I loved it. I
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
understand writer's block, honestly, because so if you're blocked at a certain point, just go to a different point. That's what I.
But that's a fear that people have, that
Yeah.
they'll lose the thread, and they don't, or it's a rule that they have, that no one has ever said to them, you can break that rule. They, like, that there are, the reason we have community and the community serves us all is to get rid of that nonsense and to remind ourselves everyone has a place, everything is possible, your story will be appreciated, just keep working.
That's what it is.
And
It's a journey and you don't know. There really is no end because that's what your life is. You're writing and writing and writing. There might be a point where you finish the manuscript, but the journey's never over.
no,
But that's the
and
beauty of it.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I have more to say about Bella than what is in these pages.
Right.
And that when I'm with kids and they ask me, there's a lot of stuff that I can share with them that was important to her. That just, not everything fits into.
Well, that's an important thing too. When you write a picture book, especially, the hardest part is to kill your darlings. You have to, there's so many things that you want to say that just don't fit, you know?
That's right.
And I
That's
know I'm
right.
going to have that. I'm having an editorial meeting with Carolyn about a manuscript, and I'm sure there's a lot of darlings that are going to go out the window. But this is what it is. It's better for the whole thing. It has to work. It has to work. But you
That's
can
right.
tell
That's right.
when you do school visits, you can tell the kids the other stuff, which is so cool too.
Or back matter. I mean, I
Back matter,
think
of
of
course.
back
Yes,
matter
that's what
as
I did.
like
Oh
a
my God,
treasure
yeah.
hunt.
Absolutely. I wrote my new book is a funny book about the Newburgh conspiracy. It's a funny book about treason. So this is ridiculous, but true. And I had to cut out so much, but I did put it all in the back matter. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I'm working on a book right now about Christopher Reeve. And so
Wow.
I've been crying
I'm sure. Yeah.
because he was injured when I was a physical therapist working with people with
Wow.
spinal cord injuries. And so his presence has been a mighty presence in my life,
Hmm.
even since his death, because his work and his foundation has allowed many of the people who I worked with or people like them to get the help that they needed. And he didn't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
His And it is such a different book for me because it's not a rah-rah book.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a fist pump book. It feels it's my heart just aches as I'm writing this book
Yeah, I can
for this
imagine.
family, for the world, and for our own ideas about what makes a hero. And like it just is, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
So I'm very excited about it. I'm working on it. I'm getting ready to send a draft.
There
Fingers
you
crossed.
go. That's great. Yeah.
Fingers
I
crossed.
think another thing that we have to encourage writers to do, is write every day. Even if you don't, if you don't have a lot of time, so what? Did you ever read Bird by Bird?
Yep, I'm a bird by bird. I am
Yeah.
definitely a bird by bird.
And yeah, that's my Bible for writing, and she says write enough to fit inside a 1-inch picture frame. And if that's all you have the time to do, that's fine. But you got to keep the juices flowing with the ideas, with the
So
stories.
15 minutes, if that's all I have, I say thank you very much and I write
Exactly.
something. If it's 5 minutes, when my kids were small, if it was 30 seconds, I would, like sit there. If it was during ballet practice, dunk,
Yeah,
dunk, dunk,
yeah, absolutely.
like,
I used to
you
write while
know,
they were in their classes. Absolutely.
um, you know, I used to tell them you can go to your rooms at 7:30, but I am no longer your mother. But unless there's an emergency, of
Right,
course.
right.
But because I need to get my writing done, and the kids got their writing done. They're like, "Nope, mom, we're with you. We're going to get our writing done too."
That's great.
But yeah, even Jennifer Jacobson, one of the first lectures I ever heard, said, "If all you do is write 9 lines a day." Now, are there people who have to work and don't have time to write every single day? Yes. For those people, I urge you, keep a notebook.
Right.
And if you get an idea, just write it down
Exactly.
because it's so hard to remember an idea. And when you get a really good idea, you have a responsibility to that idea. It found you.
It's so
So
true.
you got to go do something with
But I
it.
think
If
also
you
when you're
don't,
when you're in that creative groove, just more stuff just keeps churning.
I know. I know. It really is it's true. It's like it's a bounty and it will when you're looking. So when you're walking, put your phone away so you can look and listen. And last night I did a prompt of go to your scene. What are 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing you can what it smell,
Right.
what's left. And then we thought about the touch because the hearing and seeing is pretty easy and accessible.
Touch is
What
is
are,
a tough one. Yeah.
right? And smelling and tasting are sort of, meal. I feel like they're very specific.
Yeah.
Either they're there or they're not.
That's true.
But touching, and then we talked about the objects in the room, and I had everybody draw the room of their scene. And then I'm like, all
Literally
right, so
draw?
literally draw
I
it.
hate that.
What's
That's
in that
boring.
room? What's in that room? And then I said, okay, that object, why does it mean something to your character? And now I want you to write the scene from the object's point of view.
I like that. Yeah.
And by the time they were done, hopefully they all knew something. They were invited, they got permission to be wacky and creative and curious, and that curiosity led them to something deeper in their story. So those are the kinds of things
Nice.
that I do every day, even if I have 10 minutes. 10 minutes to
Yeah.
me, that's a gift.
Well, if I don't, what I do is I'll try to work on one sentence. Like if it's already written, I'll revise the sentence. At least I've done that.
Right, that's right.
And what I love to do? I love to make a list like I go, we really I'll speak for a lot of people. We write scene by scene, right? It's not really a chapter, it's a scene, right? Because then they
Right.
go to the next scene. So I'll write out what I always start with, like the bare bones, just like like the dialogue. Dialogue is because that's where the emotions are coming from, this and that, and then or lack of dialogue. Sometimes when you're writing a historical book, you're probably not going to put the dialogue, because you don't know the dialogue. But in any case, bare bones of that, and then I make a list of all the possible sensory details that could be there, and I pick.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. But when people say they have writer's block and they'll say to me, well, I don't know what happens. And I look like, no, 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 you don't know yet. But thinking about that, sometimes it's that they do know what happens. They just think it happens way down the road.
right?
So, and they're saving it. for something bigger. And that's why they have writer's block
Yes.
now, because they should just write that scene and
Exactly.
see what and trust the world that
Yeah.
something bigger will come up
Right.
next.
It's so true.
And it's so interesting to watch us grapple with our confidence that we can do this work. Because that, for me, that is when I know that I can do this work, then I get it done.
Yeah, I really try to impose deadlines on myself, because like I'm in a lot of writers groups, but the one that where I always force myself to have something ready is Bank Street Writers Lab. And they did it again. This time I'm like, okay, I'd been kind of stalling out. This project I'm working on is huge, right? So I was like, it freaks me out. So I forced myself to write the first chapter for them, and it was the best. And it was the best. So I was so happy. Like they've really pulled me out a few times. They've really helped me a lot. I think everyone should have somebody to be accountable to get. Otherwise, you could just procrastinate forever.
That's right. Because and then that feels invalidating. If you're doing something forever and you're not getting any closer, you're like me on my Peloton
It's
on
like
the road
treading
to
water in the
nowhere.
middle of the ocean. Like, oh no.
I'm on the road to nowhere. Crap.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it is, and a lot of us are, professionals that came from other kinds of industries where accountability was how you got paid.
I told you I've
So
never really held a successful job. I can't do it.
I think of as a former physical therapist, I think of revision as rehab.
I like
That
that.
like
That's a really
like
cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah, so when I was a physical therapist and I worked with traumatic people with traumatic brain injuries and
Wow.
spinal cord injuries. So you never knew what was going to come up because the brain is unique and you don't always know how much of the spinal cord was injured. You have to trust your eyes. So the person would come to me and I would have to trust my eyes and I would look from foot to head, head to foot. I would watch them move if they could move. And then I would say, okay, what's weak? What's tight? What's floppy?
Hmm.
What's not working? What are the compensatory responses? And then I would go about making a plan to fix those things.
That is
And then
really cool.
each day, I would have to adapt that plan.
Wow.
That's how I work on revision.
I love that.
Is I look at it,
That's a
it's a
really cool
living,
way to think
breathing
about it.
document.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, there are always strengths in a manuscript.
of
There
course.
are always
Yeah.
strengths. And there are always, well, even sometimes when it gets published, the problems. So when I'm identifying those problems, I have to look at the whole thing, the way I had to look at the whole body
Wow.
and how that body moves. Because, of course, a book is like a vector, it's like a walk across the park. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
It can't just be stagnant. This is what this is. And it needs to have room for illustrations.
Yes. And that's a whole it's by the
Yeah.
way,
And that's a whole other,
show
who
us some
even,
of your illustrations. I really it's so interesting, these illustrations. I really love them.
all right. So, Andrea Taquino, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, look at New
Wow.
York City
That's
from her.
beautiful. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. And Bella is always in red, which
Hmm.
makes her
That's perfect.
visible. So even when she's in synagogue, we
Wow.
see where she is
Yeah.
in the front where she shouldn't have been.
Wow.
Because in Orthodox Judaism,
That's right. Yeah.
the men and the women are
That's
separated.
right.
So her standing there and saying Kaddish for her father was radical
Wow.
and rebellious. And some people may have not been happy with it. And some people may have said, well, what are we supposed to do
Oh,
about it?
that's beautiful.
Here are the ladies,
Yeah. Love it.
ladies we know and love. Hi, Gloria.
Yeah, you got that amazing quote from Gloria. That was
I know.
amazing.
This is called when you get old, you stop caring about getting the word no thrown in your face. I called the office and I begged.
I love it. That is amazing.
I told them we need girls to know about Bella. And
Yeah.
then this is the one
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
that everyone in when I work with
Wow.
kids, they pause on that
Mm.
as well as I mean, I just love this book so much. The image of her foot leading the way. that she was a giant.
Yeah,
So
that's so
it
powerful.
doesn't say giant in the text.
So powerful, yeah. You really it's amazing what illustrators do for us, it's like they take the book to a whole other place that,
That's right.
it's amazing to
And I'm
see that.
very grateful to our editors who keep us separate
Yeah.
because
It's
because
like being pregnant, right? You don't know what the baby's gonna look like till you have the baby, right?
that's right. But I'm bossy. So I might say things that would lead the illustrator on. And
Yeah.
I don't want to do that
No.
because the artist, the reader, is going to enter the book through the illustrations
Yeah.
and not through the words. And so I want that illustrator to lead the way. And I don't want to tell them what to
Right,
do.
exactly.
And if there are fact checks, yeah, we'll do them. But style, like I love it. And it is the big best treat and the greatest privilege to see your words illustrated.
I know. It's amazing. It's
When
amazing.
I even when I look at Rube still, and I look, this is my favorite page of Just Like Rube Goldberg,
Wow. That is
with the
awesome.
words
Yeah.
in the pipes.
Yeah.
Like my imagination
No, yeah.
would never have gone there. And those ideas that words can inspire, again, becomes the reward for getting there, for not
So true.
quitting and
Yeah.
pushing harder and reaching further and falling down.
She really was an amazing person. Even the fact that she went to law school in what 1945. I mean, that's like was unheard of for women.
Well, she applied to Harvard, even though Harvard did not take women because she was going to make them say no. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, yeah,
She's an
that's
amazing
right.
woman.
Right. But her mom was more practical. Her mom was like, go to Columbia. You can take the subway.
That is and Columbia's no slouchy school.
No, but I mean, I could just,
That's so
and
funny.
now talking to Liz, her daughter. So if people want to support an amazing organization, the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute, run by Liz Abzug, her
Oh,
daughter,
okay.
trains young women in leadership skills, civic discourse, all kinds of leadership preparedness,
That's amazing.
and it's amazing. And everywhere I go, I talk about them.
That sounds
Liz
wonderful.
is definitely following in her mom's giant footsteps
Hmm.
and taking it even one step further, which is amazing. She's amazing.
Wow. All right. Well, we've been talking over an hour. It felt like nothing to me. We just
I
flew.
know.
So thank you so much, Sarah. This has been such a fun conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. You're beautiful too. And